A youth corrections officer has been arrested, accused of having a sexual relationship with a parolee.
In Michigan, a female deputy is now sitting in a jail cell after an improper relationship with an inmate.
Cops have a lot of power, but there's one line they should never cross. It's cozying up to the very criminals they're supposed to keep in check, especially ones behind bars. Believe it or not, it happens way more than you'd expect. Join us as we explore the 10 female cops caught with inmates. Number 10. Julie Turton. At 54 years old, Julie Turton wasn't just a prison officer in HMP Birmingham. She was a senior leader with nearly 15 years of service under her belt. Her position as the first-line manager for the notorious M-Wing placed her at the heart of the prison's operations, responsible for overseeing the welfare and security of 160 inmates. But between June 2012 and July 2013, Julie's actions revealed a secret life that would leave her colleagues and superiors stunned. It began with whispers about her growing closeness to an inmate named Danny King, a convicted heroin dealer who wasn't supposed to have access to anyone beyond the prison walls. Yet, evidence soon emerged that Julie and Danny's relationship was far from professional. What started with exchanged glances turned into something much darker. King made 95 calls to Julie's personal mobile phone, resulting in nearly 400 minutes of conversation. If that wasn't enough, their connection continued through 70 text messages, with Julie storing his number under the provocative nickname Danny XXX. When investigators raided Julie's home, they discovered a love letter hidden in her bedside drawer, written by King himself. The letter, dripping with affection, called her "My beautiful, sexy Julie," and described how seeing her during her shifts felt like Christmas every day. The situation escalated further when evidence showed Julie had sent King an intimate photograph of herself, crossing every professional line imaginable. But what came next revealed just how far Julie was willing to go for these inmates. Julie had crossed the line. She was smuggling cannabis into the prison for another inmate, Atif Hussein, hiding the drugs inside chocolate Kinder Surprise eggs. It sounds unbelievable, but police surveillance uncovered 22.5 grams of cannabis wrapped in packaging marked with Julie's fingerprints. And that wasn't all. She also helped deliver a stereo system to a third inmate, Hamza Islam, pretending to be his aunt to get the job done. Investigators found over 1,000 phone calls and texts between Julie and Hamza, and 150 communications with Hussein, all within a matter of months. The scale of Julie's misconduct left everyone in shock. By February 2014, she faced the full weight of the law. Standing before Birmingham Crown Court, Julie pleaded guilty to 5 counts of misconduct in a public office and 1 count of supplying a Class B drug. During sentencing, recorder Thomas Rochford delivered a scathing condemnation. He reminded Julie of her responsibility to maintain order in one of the UK's toughest prisons, saying, "Prisons are difficult places to run, and that is why mobile phones are forbidden. You knew it was your job to report them, not to use them." Her actions, he emphasized, had undermined the integrity of the entire institution. Julie was sentenced to 2 years and 8 months behind bars. But what could drive someone in her position to such extremes? During the trial, Julie's defense portrayed her as a woman spiraling after discovering her husband's infidelity. Feeling isolated and vulnerable, she became an easy target for manipulative inmates like King. Her lawyer described how her self-esteem crumbled, leaving her susceptible to their advances. But just when you thought nothing could top that level of betrayal, a shocking discovery at Fulton County Jail would expose an even more outrageous violation of trust. Number 9. Kowana Jenkins. In late January 2023, during what should have been a routine operation at the Fulton County Jail in Atlanta, something completely unbelievable came to light. A sheriff's strike team swept through the maximum security wing of the jail, seizing 11 contraband cell phones and several weapons. At first, it seemed like just another effort to crack down on illegal activity. However, when investigators began reviewing the contents of one of those phones, they stumbled upon something that made their jaws drop. The videos they found were horrifying. In one clip, Kowana Jenkins, a 36-year-old detention officer, was seen getting uncomfortably close to an inmate. In another, she took it even further, engaging in acts so explicit and brazen that they left no doubt she had crossed every line imaginable. The footage showed her licking and sucking on the inmate's fingers, a shocking display of unprofessional behavior that raised immediate alarms. Now, here's where things got even more troubling. This wasn't just a fleeting mistake. The evidence suggested a deeper, ongoing relationship between Jenkins and the inmate. The videos showed a pattern of misconduct, making it clear that this wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. For investigators, the implications were staggering. How had someone in her position of trust allowed this to happen? And more importantly, how much damage had already been done? Once Jenkins was identified in the footage, she was immediately fired from her position and arrested. The charges she faced were as serious as her actions. 2 counts of improper contact by an employee, 5 counts of violating her oath of office, 2 counts of reckless conduct, 2 counts of cruelty to inmates, and 1 count of giving a prohibited item to an inmate. When the news broke, Fulton County Sheriff Patrick Labatt made it clear that Jenkins's actions were a betrayal of everything the department stood for. In a public statement, he reaffirmed the department's commitment to transparency and accountability, emphasizing that Jenkins's behavior did not reflect the dedication of the many hard-working staff members who uphold their duties with integrity. Still, the damage was done, and the spotlight was now on the systemic vulnerabilities that allowed such breaches to occur. However, if you think a scandal can't get any deeper, another case halfway across the world exposed a shocking affair that unfolded in one of Sydney's most secure prisons. Number 8. Melissa Goodwin. Melissa Goodwin worked at the Metropolitan Remand and Reception Centre in Sydney, a maximum security facility where rules are extremely important to follow. Her job was clear: keep the inmates in line, enforce security protocols, and maintain the institution's integrity. There was no room for mistakes, let alone crossing the boundaries that separate staff from prisoners. Yet, beneath the surface of this seemingly straightforward role, something dark was brewing. In May 2020, whispers started making their way through the halls of the MRRC. Melissa, a trusted officer, was acting differently. Her behavior around one inmate, Antonio Faitala, raised eyebrows among her colleagues. At first, it was subtle, lingering glances, hushed conversations. But soon, those whispers turned into full-blown suspicions, and the truth that came out would leave everyone reeling. What investigators uncovered was a scandal that exposed vulnerabilities in the system itself. Melissa had been carrying out a secret affair with Faitala, an inmate under her supervision. And this wasn't just a fleeting mistake. The details of their encounters were as bold as they were shocking, taking place within the very walls she was sworn to protect. Now, how did she get away with it for so long? That's where this story takes an even more surprising turn. For months, Melissa and Faitala managed to evade detection, using blind spots in surveillance cameras and areas without constant monitoring. However, the cracks in their plan started to show. Fellow officers began noticing things that didn't add up: unauthorized movements and strange interactions. Suspicion gave way to a full-blown investigation, and what they found was unbelievable. The evidence piled up, and surveillance footage showed Melissa entering restricted areas with no clear purpose. Intercepted messages revealed a pattern of communication that broke every rule in the book. Then there were the smuggled items, as Melissa had been sneaking contraband into the prison, including a mobile phone for Faitala. Each new piece of evidence made one thing clear: this wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate, calculated risk. Once the investigation concluded, the fallout was swift and brutal. Melissa was arrested and charged with multiple offenses, including engaging in a relationship with an inmate and smuggling prohibited items into a secure facility. During her court appearance, the defense showed her as a victim, manipulated by Faitala into breaking the law. They claimed he preyed on her vulnerabilities, twisting her into doing things she never would have imagined. But prosecutors had another story to tell. They argued that Melissa wasn't just a pawn in someone else's game. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she crossed the line willingly, despite knowing the consequences. For Melissa, the price of her choices was steep. She lost her job, her reputation, and her freedom. Even with the case closed, one wonders, why did Melissa Goodwin risk everything for someone on the other side of the bars? As the shocking details of Melissa Goodwin's betrayal settled, an even more unsettling story unfolded in Arizona. Number 7. Imari Waller. By the 5th of January 2020, in the Arizona Department of Juvenile Corrections, whispers of something far from ordinary began to circulate. A fellow corrections officer stumbled upon explicit Snapchat messages on a parolee's phone. Messages that pointed to a personal relationship with Imari. The parolee, just 18 years old, was under her supervision, making the discovery more than just alarming. It hinted at a betrayal of her role, her duties, and the system that had trusted her. As investigators dug deeper, the story only grew more scandalous. They interviewed the parolee at his group home in Phoenix, where he revealed shocking details. He and Waller had engaged in improper activities at his residence, but that wasn't all. A search of the parolee's phone revealed a trove of damning evidence. Explicit photos and videos of Waller stored alongside explicit messages. And when investigators checked Waller's phone, they found explicit content of the parolee as well. There was no denying it. The evidence spoke louder than words. What came next made an already shocking case even more unbelievable. While being questioned at the Adobe Mountain School Secure Care Facility, Waller admitted to her inappropriate relationship with the parolee. She insisted that everything had happened off-site, as if that would absolve her of guilt. But then, in a move that screamed desperation, she made things even worse. During a restroom break, she used her Apple Watch to text her roommate, pleading with them to tell the parolee to deny everything and delete the evidence. This reckless attempt to cover her tracks only added another layer to the charges she was facing. When the dust settled, Waller was arrested and charged with unlawful conduct with a person in custody, a serious felony. It didn't matter that the encounters took place outside the facility. The parolee was still under the jurisdiction of the Arizona Department of Juvenile Corrections, which made her actions a clear violation of the law. Her arrest marked the end of her career, as she was swiftly terminated from her position. However, there's another case that's bound to leave you stunned, this time within the walls of HMP Birmingham. Number 6. Shanah Begim. Shanah's career at HMP Birmingham started in December 2018. As a prison officer at a Category B men's prison, her role was clear: supervise inmates, enforce the rules, and maintain the safety of the facility. Professional boundaries weren't just guidelines, they were non-negotiable. But somewhere along the way, those lines became blurred, and what began as a job of authority spiraled into a story of forbidden attraction and reckless decisions. The truth began to surface in September 2022, when staff at the prison noticed something unusual. Shanah's interactions with one particular inmate, Joshua Mullings, didn't seem right. Suspicion turned to action, and an anti-corruption investigation was launched. What investigators found wasn't just inappropriate, it was shocking. To confirm their suspicions, prison authorities installed covert surveillance cameras in a storage cupboard frequently visited by Shanah and Mullings. Over the course of just 1 week, between September 22nd and 29th, the cameras captured everything. The footage showed Shanah and Mullings engaging in highly inappropriate acts right there in the cupboard. But that's not all. The recordings also revealed Shanah ignoring her radio during these encounters, even as other staff members occasionally interrupted them. The evidence was undeniable, and the fallout came fast. On October 3rd, 2022, Shanah was arrested and charged with misconduct in a public office. During police interviews, she initially stayed silent, refusing to answer questions. But the weight of the evidence left little room for denial. By the time her case reached Birmingham Crown Court, Shanah pleaded guilty, fully acknowledging the extent of her misconduct. On January 11, 2024, her sentence was handed down, 16 months behind bars. Judge John Butterfield didn't mince words, describing her actions as having a corrosive effect on the prison system. Her behavior, he said, undermined the trust the public places in those tasked with upholding the law. But why would someone in Shanah's position risk everything? That's where the story takes an even more complex turn. Her defense attorney, Andrew Baker, painted a picture of a woman under immense personal pressure. Shanah was dealing with the looming threat of an arranged marriage, caring for an unwell mother and elder sister, and battling stress on all fronts. In the midst of this chaos, Mullings made her feel valued, even cherished. It was a dangerous dynamic, and Shanah's vulnerabilities were exploited in ways that ultimately led her down this path. But despite these mitigating factors, the court couldn't ignore the gravity of her actions, as Shanah's story revealed the consequences of crossing lines in HMP Birmingham. A chilling phone call in Texas would expose yet another shocking breach of trust. Number 5. Charlene Diane O'Banion. On December 17, 2021, at the Montgomery County Jail in Conroe, Texas, authorities intercepted a phone call that would change everything. On the line, Charlene and 28-year-old inmate Jacob Parker were having a conversation that was concerningly explicit. The two openly discussed their intimate encounters, breaking not only professional boundaries but also the trust placed in Charlene as a deputy. That phone call set off alarms, sparking an immediate and thorough investigation by the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office. What investigators discovered went far beyond a single conversation. As the details unfolded, Charlene confessed to an incident that had taken place on November 17, 2021. On that day, amidst the routine chaos of jail operations, a shortage of workers in a housing section known as B Quad created an opportunity she would come to regret. Volunteers from other units were brought in to help with cleaning duties. Among them was Jacob Parker, the inmate she had grown dangerously close to. In a secluded corner of the jail, hidden from view, Charlene and Jacob shared a moment that crossed every imaginable line. What started with kissing escalated into oral sex. The fallout was swift and severe. After her confession, Charlene faced charges of improper activity with a person in custody. This was no minor offense. By May 2022, she pleaded guilty to the charges, fully acknowledging her misconduct. Montgomery County District Judge Grant handed down a sentence of 100 days in jail. While some may have debated the length of her punishment, the message was clear: such actions would not be tolerated. As Charlene's downfall echoed through the halls of Montgomery County Jail, a scandal brewing in HMP, Goodwin revealed how far one officer was willing to go for an inmate. Number 4. Jennifer Gavin. Jennifer's job at HMP Goodwin wasn't just a paycheck. It came with enormous responsibility. She was expected to supervise inmates, ensure security, and embody the strict ethical standards required in a prison environment. But somewhere along the way, in 2020, her role shifted from authority figure to accomplice, and it all centered around one inmate, 25-year-old Alex Coxon. The connection between the two started subtly, but what began as an inappropriate relationship quickly spiraled into something far more serious. By the time authorities caught on, Jennifer's actions had already crossed multiple boundaries. She didn't just break the rules, she shattered them. For a payment of £150, Jennifer smuggled a contraband mobile phone into the prison for Alex. This wasn't just a violation of policy, it opened a dangerous door to unauthorized communication. Using this phone, Jennifer and Alex exchanged explicit messages, and she even sent him provocative images over Snapchat. But the most startling revelation was yet to come. Jennifer admitted to getting intimate with Alex within the prison walls, taking their secret relationship to a level that shocked everyone involved. The unraveling of this illicit affair began with a simple tip-off, a suspicion that something wasn't right. Prison authorities launched an investigation, and what they discovered was far worse than they had imagined. During a search, they found the smuggled phone tucked away under a prison laptop, its contents incriminating enough to seal Jennifer's fate. Among the evidence were the explicit images she had sent to Alex and call data that exposed the communication between them. The case was airtight. When Jennifer faced the court, the evidence left no room for denial. She pleaded guilty to misconduct in public office, and in December 2022, her punishment was handed down: 8 months behind bars. Judge Nicholas Parry didn't mince words. He emphasized that Jennifer's actions had severely undermined the safety of the prison, betraying the trust placed in her and endangering both staff and inmates. It was a reminder of the devastating impact one person's choices could have on an entire institution. However, a far younger officer in Tennessee would expose an entirely new level of misconduct. Number 3. Emily Davis. Emily Davis's story is one that no one saw coming. A scandal that exposed cracks in the walls of Riverbend Maximum Security Institution in Nashville, Tennessee. At just 22, she had a job that carried immense responsibility. As a correctional officer, she was tasked with ensuring order, maintaining security, and upholding strict professional standards. But by June 2019, Emily found herself on the other side of the law. What could make someone with so much at stake risk it all? The answer is as shocking as the events that followed. At first, everything seemed routine. Emily's job required her to supervise inmates and adhere to the Tennessee Department of Corrections' zero-tolerance policy for personal relationships between staff and prisoners. But beneath the surface, a dangerous connection was forming, a connection that would eventually unravel in ways no one could have predicted. It all started with whispers and side glances. Fellow officers noticed unusual interactions between Emily and one particular inmate. Something about their behavior didn't sit right, and it wasn't long before an investigation was launched. What investigators uncovered wasn't just inappropriate, it was downright explosive. Surveillance footage revealed moments of suspicious behavior, but that was just the beginning. The deeper they dug, the darker the truth became. The real turning point came when handwritten letters were intercepted. Emily, using the alias Dawn Adams, had been writing to the inmate, pouring her heart out on paper. In these letters, she detailed their secret encounters and even voiced fears about a potential pregnancy. But Emily made a critical mistake. She included her home address on the envelopes, making it all too easy for investigators to trace the letters back to her. It wasn't just damning evidence. It was a confession in her own handwriting. By June 1st, 2019, the inmate admitted to what many had already suspected. He confessed to having inappropriate relations with Emily on 2 separate occasions, both within the prison walls. His statement, combined with the surveillance footage and intercepted letters, left no room for doubt. The evidence against Emily was overwhelming, and the consequences were about to come crashing down. In mid-May 2019, as the investigation intensified, Emily resigned from her position. But stepping away from the job wasn't enough to shield her from what was coming. Shortly after, she was arrested and charged with a felony offense for engaging in inappropriate relations with a prisoner. But the damage was done. Emily's actions had compromised the safety of the facility and cast a shadow over the integrity of the entire institution. Now, we're going to go into a tip-off in Fresno County Jail that revealed a betrayal that nobody could have seen coming. Number 2, Tina Gonzalez. It all started with a tip-off at the Fresno County Jail in California. Rumors swirled that a male inmate had a contraband cell phone. At first, it seemed like just another routine breach to investigate. But when officers searched the inmate's cell, the reality was far worse than anyone imagined. That phone wasn't the only problem. Evidence pointed to an even bigger issue: a secret relationship between the inmate and one of their own, a correctional officer. And not just any officer, but Tina Gonzalez, a young and seemingly dedicated employee who had been with the sheriff's office since 2016. What they discovered next would blow the case wide open. Investigators didn't just find evidence of an inappropriate relationship. They uncovered a series of deliberate, jaw-dropping actions that Gonzalez had been orchestrating behind the scenes. She wasn't just sneaking in banned items like alcohol and razors, objects that could easily turn dangerous in the wrong hands. She was engaging in unprofessional acts with the inmate. And if that wasn't shocking enough, these encounters happened in view of 11 inmates who were all there as witnesses to her blatant disregard for rules and professional boundaries. However, it didn't stop there. Gonzalez went a step further, feeding the inmate confidential information about cell inspections and other security details. By doing this, she didn't just risk her career, she put her co-workers' safety on the line. By May 2020, the scandal had unraveled completely, and Gonzalez was arrested. The charges against her included felony counts for engaging in improper activity with a confined adult, smuggling contraband, and even attempting to deliver a phone to the inmate. She faced serious time, over 3 years behind bars. But her actions and her apparent lack of remorse made this case anything but straightforward. When her trial came, Gonzalez pleaded no contest. However, even as she stood in court, the details of her behavior kept surfacing. Assistant Sheriff Steve McComas didn't hold back, calling her actions something only a depraved mind could come up with. He revealed that even after her arrest, Gonzalez continued to communicate with the inmate, engaging in explicit conversations as though nothing had happened. To McComas, this was a betrayal that had lasting consequences for everyone involved. The court took her past into account, her clean record, her willingness to admit fault. But the gravity of her actions couldn't be ignored. In June 2021, Gonzalez was sentenced to 10 days in jail and 2 years of probation. Some argued that her punishment didn't match the risks she had taken or the damage she had done. Others pointed to her personal struggles, including the collapse of her marriage, as a possible explanation for her reckless behavior. Her defense team argued that she never intended to harm anyone, but for many, the damage was already done. However, a far more explosive scandal emerged in London's HMP Wandsworth, where a viral video exposed misconduct on a level no one could ignore. Number 1. Dusza Abo. In June 2024, Dusza Abo's actions ignited a scandal so explosive that it dominated headlines and raised questions about professional conduct and boundaries in the prison system. And as the details emerged, they revealed twists and turns that no one could have predicted. Between June 26th and 28th, 2024, Linda crossed a line that would destroy her career and put her personal life on public display. Her involvement with inmate Linton Weirich, a 36-year-old convicted burglar, wasn't just inappropriate, it was shocking. Investigators discovered that Linda had engaged in inappropriate activity with Linton right in his cell. But what made this even more outrageous was that the entire encounter had been recorded by another inmate. The video, lasting nearly 5 minutes, captured Linda in her full uniform, her operational radio audible in the background. It didn't take long for the footage to find its way onto social media, where it spread like wildfire, exposing her actions to the world. As the video went viral, the shocking footage prompted an internal investigation at HMP Wandsworth, and Linda's identity was quickly confirmed by prison authorities. But the twists didn't end there. On June 28th, just 2 days after the incident, Linda was arrested at Heathrow Airport while attempting to board a flight to Madrid. It seemed she was planning to leave everything behind. Before her arrest, she had called the prison to resign from her position, stating that her husband would return her equipment. It was a dramatic attempt to escape the consequences, but it was already too late. When the case went to court, the evidence against Linda was overwhelming. She pleaded guilty to misconduct in public office at Isleworth Crown Court, and Judge Martin Edmonds KC did not hold back during sentencing. He condemned her actions as a blatant abuse of her role, emphasizing how her behavior undermined discipline within the prison and put her fellow officers at risk. The widespread circulation of the video only amplified the harm caused, tarnishing not just her reputation, but the integrity of the institution. On January 6, 2025, Linda was sentenced to 15 months in prison, with half to be served in custody and the remainder on license. The incident created a ripple effect that deeply affected HMP Wandsworth. Governor Andy Davey reported a disturbing shift in inmate behavior, particularly toward female staff members. Emboldened by the scandal, prisoners began openly harassing female officers, viewing them as fair game. This toxic atmosphere led to a decline in staff morale and raised serious concerns about the safety and professionalism within the prison. Adding another layer to this already complex case was Linda's personal history. During the trial, her defense revealed that she suffered from borderline personality disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, conditions that, according to a psychiatric report, contributed to her impulsive and reckless behavior. While these factors were presented as mitigating circumstances, the judge maintained that the severity of her offense required a custodial sentence. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.